The first rule of living in the Harmony Creek Homeowners Association is that harmony is a threat, not a promise. The second rule is that all holiday decorations must be in the HOA's own beige-colored passion killer font. Tasteful. I thought I was the king of tasteful. "All right, General Grumbles, let's get you straight," I muttered, wobbling on the third rung of my aluminum ladder. I nudged the fuzzy black hat of my favorite Nutcracker, a 3-foot-tall wooden soldier whose painted-on scowl I found endlessly charming. This was my first Christmas in the house, and I was determined to do it right. My father, a man who believed Christmas wasn't Christmas without a small army of wooden Germans guarding the porch, had left me his entire collection. 12 magnificent, hand-carved, 3-foot-tall Nutcrackers. I had Sergeant Sweet-Tooth, the baker, holding a tiny pretzel. I had Baron von Barks, the hunter with his little pipe. And of course, General Grumbles, the leader. I'd spent the whole morning setting them up. They lined my walkway, a festive, colorful honor guard. I'd just stepped back to admire my work, whistling a decidedly off-key Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, when I heard the sound that strikes fear into the heart of every Harmony Creek resident. The squeak of sensible sketchers on a perfectly manicured lawn. "Mark!" I turned. Brenda was marching toward me. Brenda was the HOA president, a woman who wore a white tennis visor in all weather, including the first week of December. She carried a clipboard like a weapon, and I had a sinking feeling I was her target. "Brenda," I said, offering a neighborly smile. "Getting in the holiday spirit?" She stopped exactly 3 feet from my property line, as if I had cooties. Her eyes weren't on me. They were scanning my wooden soldiers, and her lip was curled in a way that suggested she'd just found a bug in her Chardonnay. "Mark," she said again, her voice tight. "We need to talk about your dolls." "They're Nutcrackers," I said, my smile becoming a bit more rigid. "Traditional. Festive. From the land of sweets, not the island of creepy dolls. What's the problem?" Brenda finally looked at me. Her eyes were the color of cold, hard cash. "They're creepy, Mark. That's the problem." I blinked. "Creepy? They're Nutcrackers. They're from a ballet." "The one with the saber," she said, pointing an accusatory finger at Captain Cracker. "It's leering. It's leering at my cat. And Mrs. Gable in Unit 4, she gestured down the street, says the baker one is judging her carb intake. She's on a very strict keto diet, and this is causing her emotional distress." I looked at Sergeant Sweet-Tooth. His rosy cheeks and cheerful, painted-on smile looked about as judgmental as a golden retriever puppy. "Brenda, they're made of wood," I tried to reason. "Their eyes are painted on. I can't be held responsible for Mrs. Gable's gluten-related insecurities. They're my dad's. They're a family tradition." "Tradition is not an excuse for non-harmonious elements," she snapped. And I knew she was quoting directly from the bylaws. That book was her Bible. "They are unsettling, Mark. The neighborhood consensus is that they look like a tiny wooden army of peeping Toms. They have to go." "Go? Go where? They're Christmas decorations." "They are an eyesore. You have 48 hours to remove them. Read your bylaws, Mark. Article 9, Section 4. All exterior decorations must maintain a tasteful, harmonious, and non-disturbing aesthetic. Your dolls are disturbing. Good day." She didn't wait for a response. She just turned on her squeaky heel and marched back to her own sterile, joy-free lawn, which was decorated with exactly 3 tasteful white-light deer. I looked at General Grumbles. He scowled back, and for the first time I had to admit, he did look a little creepy. But he was my creepy. I figured she was bluffing. Just a power-tripping HOA president trying to scare the new guy. Surely she wouldn't actually fine me. The next afternoon, a crisp, beige-colored envelope was taped to my front door. It wasn't a friendly note. It was a formal notice of violation. Violation. Article 9, Section 4. Aesthetic, harmonious. Infraction. Installation of 12 large, unsettling, and creepy doll-like figures. Nutcrackers. Remedy. Immediate removal of said figures. Penalty. Failure to comply will result in a fine of $100 per day, per the authority vested in the Harmony Creek Architectural Review Committee, HARC. She'd done it. She'd actually fined me. For nutcrackers. My dad's nutcrackers. I stood on my porch, holding the letter. The violation notice felt cold in my hand. $100 a day. For tradition. For Christmas. Creepy. That was the word she kept using. Unsettling. Non-harmonious. A slow, dangerous smile spread across my face. I looked from the beige letter to Brenda's identical beige house across the street. Fine, I said to General Grumbles. She wants harmony. I'll give her harmony. She wants to see creepy? Oh, I can show her creepy. But more importantly, I can show her maliciously compliant. I took my 12 soldiers off the lawn, packed them carefully in their boxes, and put them in the garage. The war on Christmas was over. The war on Brenda had just begun. That night, my house was dark, save for the green shaded lamp on my desk. I wasn't watching Christmas movies. I wasn't drinking eggnog. I was at war. In front of me sat the enemy's operations manual, the Harmony Creek Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. It was a 300-page, 3-ring binder, dense as a fruitcake, and about as joyful. The very air around it smelled of old toner and shattered dreams. You don't go to war with a binder thumper like Brenda without reading the scripture. I poured a stiff whiskey and cracked it open. Let's see what we've got here, I muttered, taking a sip. It was a masterpiece of suburban misery. I mean, a masterpiece. Section 4A, Holiday Lights. All exterior illumination must be white or clear only. Twinkling is expressly forbidden. Blinking or fading, at a rate not to exceed 1.5 seconds per cycle, may be acceptable upon written pre-approval from the HARC. No lights may be illuminated before December 1st or after January 3rd. Twinkling is forbidden, I said to my empty living room. God forbid we have joyful lights. Section 7B. Inflatables. All air-blown or inflatable figures, including but not limited to Santas, snowmen, reindeer, or bouncy castles, are prohibited, as they may frighten local birds and present a non-standard visual disruption. Frighten the birds, I scoffed, taking another sip. The birds in this neighborhood look tough enough to steal a car. What else you got, you monster? Section 9C. Lawn gnomes. Prohibited. Immediate removal. Section 9D. Flamingos. Plastic. Prohibited. Section 9E. All other whimsical. Lawn statuary. Prohibited. It was a complete and total lockdown on fun. Every page I turned was another no. No excessive wreaths. No non-traditional colors, i.e., anything but beige, forest green, or white. No audible decorations, which meant my little wind-up music box Santa was also a potential felony. I was getting depressed. This binder wasn't just a set of rules. It was a philosophy. A gray, joyless, beige philosophy. Brenda hadn't just written this thing. She was this thing. I was about to give up, to just accept my fate as the guy who lived in the most boring neighborhood in America, when my eye snagged on a word. I was in the yard art section, the one that had already crushed my gnome-loving soul, but I'd read it too fast. I flipped back. There it was. Article 12. Statuary. Article 12. Statuary. All artistic statuary, portraits, or human likenesses are permissible if a. They are professionally constructed and maintained. b. They are not whimsical in nature. See 9CE. c. They do not obstruct public walkways or sightlines. I read it again and again. Human likenesses are permissible. My Nutcrackers were, apparently, whimsical and creepy. They were dolls. But a statue, a human likeness, that was fine, as long as it was professionally maintained. A tiny, dangerous spark ignited in my brain. I started flipping through the binder again, this time with a purpose. I landed on Article 15, the Holiday Displays section. Article 15. Holiday Displays. All seasonal displays, e.g. Christmas, Hanukkah, Thanksgiving, must be in the holiday spirit and adhere to all other community guidelines. See Section 4A, 9, 12, etc. I sat back, my glass of whiskey halfway to my mouth. The pieces were clicking together like tiny, spiteful Legos. So, let's review. My Nutcrackers were creepy and whimsical. Out, but human likenesses were in as long as they were professionally constructed. And all holiday displays had to be in the holiday spirit. My Nutcrackers were creepy. But what if I made a display that wasn't creepy? What if I made a tribute, a professionally maintained statuary display, a holiday homage to the very people who work so tirelessly day and night to protect our harmony? Brenda said the Nutcrackers were creepy. Wait until she saw her own face, life-size, staring back at her. The plan formed, sudden and glorious, like a Christmas miracle wrapped in petty revenge. I wasn't just going to replace the Nutcrackers. I was going to replace them with life-size, hyper-realistic, professionally constructed mannequins of the entire 4-person HOA board. I pulled out a legal pad and started to sketch. Brenda, president. The Karen, the vice grip. She'd be front and center. Stan, treasurer. A permanently squinting man who I'd seen count the bricks on his own house. He was obsessed with fines and budgets. Gary, secretary. A weaselly younger guy, maybe 30, who just loved carrying a clipboard and wielding his tiny, insignificant bit of power. Marge, vice president. Brenda's shadow, a silent, nodding echo. I'd never actually heard her speak. She just agreed. They wanted to be the center of the community? Fine. I'd put them front and center, right on my lawn, for all of Harmony Creek to see. In the holiday spirit, I whispered, a grin splitting my face. Oh, I'll put them in the holiday spirit. I'll wrap them in tinsel and shove a Santa hat on every one of their professionally constructed heads. I just needed to find someone who could sculpt disappointment, entitlement, and petty tyranny in under a week. The next morning, I was a man on a mission. I sat at my desk, phone in hand, and Googled custom mannequin supplier. My first call was to a retail display company in the city. A very bored-sounding woman picked up. DRS Displays. How can I help you? Hi, I said, trying to sound normal. I need to order 4 mannequins, but I need them to be specific. Sir, we have the athletic pose, the casual stance, and the hand-on hip. They all have the same neutral gaze egghead. We can do them in matte white, glossy white, or flesh tone beige. What's your floor plan? No, I said. That's not... I need custom heads. And custom poses, based on photographs. A long, suspicious pause. Sir, is this for an art project? Exactly, it's for an art project. A holiday display. We don't do art projects. We do retail. Our hand-on-hip model is on sale, 10% off if you buy 6 or more. Can I interest you in 6? No, I need one to look, well, angry, but like a specific kind of angry, a you put your recycling bin out 2 hours early angry. Sir, she said, her voice dropping to an icy monotone. We don't do that. Is this for a fetish thing? We don't do that either. Click. She hung up on me. My second call was to a local sculptor who did garden statues. I normally work in bronze, he said, his voice sounding like it was coming through a cloud of pipe smoke. And I'm currently commissioned to do The Spirit of the Trout for the new town hall. My wait list is 2 years. You want 4 life-size neighbors by next week? Son, are you high? My third, fourth, and fifth calls were just as useless. I called a party supply store. We have cardboard cutouts of celebrities? A theatrical prop house. Sorry, our disappointed suburbanite is currently rented out. And a wig shop, who just got very confused. I was getting frustrated. It was one thing to have a brilliant evil plan. It was another to find the evil-adjacent contractors to pull it off. I was about to give up when I went to the weird part of the internet. The part where the search bar has cobwebs on it. I ended up on a forum for haunted house designers and indie B-movie prop makers. I scrolled past threads titled Best Recipe for Edible Fake Blood and My Animatronic Zombie Keeps Shorting Out. And then I found him. A user named Skeeter's Silicone Horrors. His banner was a picture of a 6-armed alien holding a severed head. His work was disturbing, and fast, and most importantly, hyper-realistic. I sent him an email with a vague subject line, Urgent Custom Statuary Project. He replied in 10 minutes. Call me. Don't be weird. I called. A voice that sounded like it gargled with gravel and coffee grounds answered. Skeeter? Hi, Skeeter. My name is Mark. I'm looking for custom statuary. Yeah, that's what the email said. What's the project? Zombies? Aliens? Gory car wreck victim? No, nothing like that, I said. I need people. 4 of them. Life-size. But they need to look exactly like who? My neighbors. There was a long silence on the line. I thought he'd hung up. Dude, he finally said. That's way creepier than a zombie. I'm in. Where are you? Skeeter's studio was in a series of self-storage units by the old train tracks. The air smelled of latex, spray paint, and questionable life choices. A dismembered alien arm was being used as a doorstop. The inside was a glorious nightmare of fake corpses, silicone masks, buckets of fangs, and a half-finished werewolf. Skeeter himself was a guy in his late 40s, with a long graying goatee, paint-splattered overalls, and the most intensely cheerful eyes I'd ever seen. He was drinking a Mountain Dew at 9 a.m. Mark, he boomed, shaking my hand with a grip that was covered in some kind of bluish clay. "The neighbor guy! I love it! So, let me get this straight. You want 4 hyper-realistic life-size figures of your neighbors for your front lawn, and you want them dressed up for Christmas." "It's a tribute," I said weakly, trying to stick to the story. "An homage. I really appreciate them. And the bylaws say professionally maintained. You look professional." Skeeter looked around his studio at a bucket labeled eyeballs, and then back at me. He grinned, revealing several silver teeth. You're doing an HOA spite job, aren't you?" I must have blushed. I'm just a guy who loves the holidays, Skeeter." Right, Skeeter said, winking. "A holiday guy. I love it. I live for this. This is the good stuff. I once made a 10-foot-tall Bigfoot for a guy who was in a property line dispute, just so it would stare into his neighbor's bathroom window. This is art. This is suburban Gothic. So you can do it? Kid, I can make you a 50-foot-tall animatronic Santa that breathes real fire. 4 disappointing neighbors? That's a Tuesday. But art ain't cheap. And spite art? Spite art's a premium, and it's a rush job. It's gonna cost you." The price he named made my stomach clench. It was a lot. It was, "This is a terrible financial decision" money. I looked at a photo on my phone. It was the beige violation notice. "I'll pay it," I said, "but they have to be perfect." "Oh, they'll be perfect," Skeeter said, his eyes gleaming. "They'll be uncanny valley perfect. They'll be make you drop your groceries perfect. But I need source material. And I don't mean your blurry Facebook photos. I need details. I need angles. I need the essence of their souls, man." Their souls? Or, just some good, clear, close-up photos. Front, side, back of the head if you can. And get me their poses. I need to see how they stand, how they judge. That's where the magic is. So I became a creep. There was no other word for it. For the next 2 days, I was the Harmony Creek stalker. I perched in my attic window with a 300mm telephoto lens I'd bought for bird watching. This was, by far, the creepiest, most unsettling and non-harmonious thing I had ever done. Brenda was right all along. I was creepy, but I was also motivated. Click. I got a perfect shot of Brenda, in her visor, yelling at the pool guy for parking his truck 3 inches onto the grass. Her face was a perfect mask of righteous indignation. The vein in her neck was popping. "Perfect," I whispered. "We'll call this the vice grip veto." Click. There was Stan, the treasurer, squinting at a receipt from the grocery store? He was just standing in his driveway, squinting at it. "Got him," I muttered. "The suspicious squint." Click. Gary, the secretary, was writing a ticket for a basketball hoop that was apparently not stored correctly. He had his power trip pout on. The weasel in charge. Click. Marge. Marge was the hardest. She didn't do anything. I finally got a shot of her in her car, parked, waiting for Brenda. She was just nodding. To the radio, to herself. It was perfect. The perpetual nod. I emailed the heavily compressed, privacy-blurring photos to Skeeter with the subject line, "The reference materials." His reply came 2 minutes later. It contained only one word: gold. For the next 4 days, my lawn was a barren wasteland of compliance. It was brown, dormant, and utterly depressing. It was, in other words, perfectly harmonious. As a show of good faith, I had very, very publicly removed my 12 Nutcrackers. I did it on a Saturday morning, when I knew Brenda and the rest of the neighborhood would be home. I got out the good boxes, the ones with the custom-cut foam. I whistled a sad funeral dirge version of Jingle Bells. I tenderly wrapped General Grumbles in 3 layers of bubble wrap and laid him to rest. From across the street, I saw her. Brenda. She was standing in her picture window, sipping tea from a delicate cup. She saw me packing. She saw the defeat. And she gave me a single, slow, triumphant nod. It was the most condescending gesture I had ever witnessed. "That's it, Brenda," I muttered under my breath, sealing the box with excessive amounts of packing tape. "Savor it. Drink it in. You've won the battle of the Nutcrackers. You've successfully bullied the new guy and protected the neighborhood from wood. But you have no idea the tribute that's coming. Christmas is coming, Brenda, and it's coming for you." My neighbor Dave, a decent guy who'd gotten a fine for his sonically aggressive wind chimes, walked by with his dog. "Giving up so soon, Mark?" he asked, his voice low. "Just clearing out some old decorations, Dave," I said, putting on my most beaten-down face. "Can't fight City Hall." "Yeah," Dave said, shaking his head and looking at Brenda's house. "City Hall's a real piece of work. Shame. I liked the General." "Me too, Dave. Me too." For 4 nights, I barely slept. I was giddy. I was terrified. I was a 38-year-old man who had just spent an obscene amount of money on 4 dolls of his neighbors. This was either the most brilliant thing I'd ever done, or the act of a complete lunatic. The line was getting very, very blurry. Then, on Tuesday night, at 2:57 a.m., I got a text. "Here." I looked out my window. A large, unmarked box truck, the kind that looks like it's used for either moving furniture or disposing of large problems, was idling at the curb. Its lights were off. I threw on a bathrobe and slippers and padded outside. The air was cold and dead silent. It felt less like Christmas and more like a scene from a spy movie. The back of the truck rolled up with a loud screech. "Shh," I hissed. "Sorry, man, the hydraulics are sticky," Skeeter's voice whispered from the darkness. He and 2 other guys, dressed all in black, were inside. You're wearing a bathrobe." "I'm in character as a sleeping homeowner," I whispered back. "Let's do this." They were magnificent. They were terrifying. They were art. Skeeter had brought them out, one by one, on dollies. They were wrapped in black plastic, like body bags. "Okay," Skeeter breathed, unwrapping the first one. "Here's the president. She's heavy. She's dense. We used a cement base for this one. She's not going anywhere." He pulled the plastic off, and I swear my heart stopped. It was Brenda. It was her face. The disappointed eyes, the thin, disapproving line of her mouth, the visor. He'd even gotten the visor. "Skeeter," I breathed. It's her. Right? The texture on the skin is a new silicone blend I'm working on. It's hyper flesh. Look, you can even see the pores." "That's disgusting. I love it. Where's Stan?" "The squinter is right here," he said, rolling out the next one. "And the weasel. And my personal favorite, the bobblehead." He unveiled Marge. And her head was moving. It was on a tiny, silent motor. A slow, perpetual, up and down nod. Nod, nod. "Skeeter, you're a monster," I said, a tear of joy in my eye. "A beautiful, brilliant monster. It's battery-powered, he whispered. Should last a week. Maybe 2, if the cold doesn't kill it. Now, where do you want him? Front and center. It's a diorama. I call it the HOA Holiday Judgment. For the next hour, we worked in the dead of night. It was like a Black Ops mission. We rolled the heavy statues onto the lawn. We bolted them to the pre-cut plywood bases I'd painted green. We positioned them exactly right. Brenda went in the middle. I'd had Skeeter sculpt her hand into that perfect accusatory point. I had a little laminated copy of Article 9, Section 4, ready, and I tucked it right into her cold silicone hand. Stan, the squinter, went to her left. I angled him toward the walkway, so it looked like he was auditing the cracks in the concrete for structural non-compliance. I put a ledger in his hand that I'd labeled fines. Gary, the weasel, went to her right. He held his clipboard and a measuring tape, which I'd extended to look like he was about to fine my boxwood for being half an inch too tall. And Marge? Wonderful, wonderful Marge. We put her just behind Brenda's shoulder. Her head just kept going. Nod, nod. The whir click was the only sound on the street. Okay, I said, stepping back. The final touch. I ran back inside and grabbed 4 Santa hats and a string of tinsel. What are you... Oh man, Skeeter chuckled. That's evil. That's next level. The hats. We put the hats on their heads. They looked festive, festively terrifying. I wrapped the tinsel around the cement bases. One last thing, I said, and ran back to the garage. I came back with a professionally printed sign I'd had made at Kinko's. I staked it in the ground, right in front. A harmonious holiday tribute to our dedicated board. Skeeter was slow clapping. Kid, this ain't a spite job anymore. This is a masterpiece. This is Guernica for the suburbs. My work here is done. He and his crew loaded up, took the cash-stuffed envelope I gave them, and were gone. The truck rolled away, lights off, disappearing into the pre-dawn darkness. It was 4:15 a.m. I went inside. I set my coffee pot to brew at 5:45 a.m. I grabbed the HOA binder and a throw, blanket, and I sat down in the dark in my living room window. I didn't even bother trying to sleep. This was better than Christmas morning. The digital clock on my cable box flipped to 6 o'clock a.m. The coffee was hot and black in my mug. Outside, the world was a still, dark, pre-dawn blue. My tribute was just a collection of lumpy shadows, waiting. I waited, and I watched. 6:10 a.m. A car drove by, a newspaper delivery. The driver didn't even slow down. 6:15 a.m. Mr. Henderson, 4 doors down, came out for his morning jog. He was wearing a headlamp. He ran past, completely oblivious. My heart sank. Were they not noticeable enough? And then, 6:22 a.m., like clockwork. The light in Brenda's house clicked on. I saw her silhouette in the window, and then the front door opened. She emerged, wrapped in a fluffy pink bathrobe, her visor already firmly in place over her sleep-mussed hair. She walked down her driveway to pick up her paper. This was the moment. She bent over, grabbed the paper, and straightened up. She turned, and she froze. It was a magnificent freeze. A full body, I've just seen a ghost, or perhaps a very confusing math problem freeze. Her head tilted, like a dog hearing a high-pitched whistle. She took 2 steps forward. She squinted. She wasn't wearing her glasses. She took 5 more steps, walking into the street coming onto my property line. She was close enough now, close enough to see. The reaction was glorious. It happened in stages. First, confusion. Her mouth opened, then closed. Second, disbelief. She shook her head, as if to clear it. She looked at her own house, then back at mine. Third, recognition. Her eyes went wide. Fourth, the drop. The newspaper slipped from her hand. Her coffee mug, the one I'd seen 100 times, the one that said "World's Best HOA President," tilted. A small, sad stream of lukewarm latte hit the pavement. And fifth, the sound. It started low. A kind of gurgle, like a deflating balloon. Then it found its register. It was a sound I had only heard in nature documentaries about distressed sea lions. "Mark!" it echoed. In the cold December air, it echoed. Lights clicked on in other houses. A curtain twitched. A door opened. My neighbor Dave, in his boxers and a t-shirt, stumbled out onto his porch. What's on fire?" Brenda was on my lawn now. She was on my lawn, which I knew was a violation of her own trespassing rules. She was standing nose to nose with herself. "What is this?" she shrieked, poking mannequin Brenda in her silicone cheek. "Morning, Dave," I called out, stepping onto my own porch, coffee mug in hand. I took a loud, deliberate sip. "Merry Christmas." "Holy." Dave's eyes were wide. He was looking at my lawn. "Mark, is that Stan?" "It's a tribute, Dave," I called cheerfully. "Just showing my appreciation for all their hard work." By now, the entire cul-de-sac was waking up. People were coming out in bathrobes, on their way to work or walking their dogs, and they all just stopped. It was a beautiful traffic jam of pure, unadulterated WTF. This is harassment," Brenda screamed, turning to me. She was vibrating with rage. "This is pornography." "It's not pornography, Brenda," I said, taking another sip. "They're fully clothed. In fact, I made sure they were modest. And they're wearing tinsel. That's festive. Per Article 15. She was speechless. She was literally just opening and closing her mouth, making little goldfish sounds. She turned her rage on the closest target. Mannequin Marge. "And you!" she shrieked at the nodding, battery-operated doll. "Stop nodding at me!" She slapped it. She slapped Mannequin Marge. The head just bounced on its little spring neck and kept on nodding. Nod, not nod. This was, without question, the greatest morning of my entire life. Dave was on my lawn now, slow clapping. "Mark, that is just art. You got Stan's squint. It's perfect." A car slowed down, a woman on her way to work. She rolled down her window, took a long look, and just started cackling. She pulled over, took out her phone, and started taking pictures. Brenda saw this. It was one thing to be mocked by me. It was another to be mocked by traffic. "This is illegal," she screamed. "What part?" I asked, genuinely curious. You're mocking me." "Brenda, I'm shocked," I said, putting on my most innocent face. "I'm honoring you. You told me my Nutcrackers were creepy. I took that to heart. I wanted a display that wasn't creepy. And what's less creepy than the very faces of our esteemed board? You can't possibly find this creepy, can you? It's your own face." She looked from me to the mannequin, and I could see the steam coming out of her ears. She was a human tea kettle. She pulled out her phone, her fingers jabbing at the screen. "You think you're so smart, Mark. You think you're so clever. We'll see. We'll just see. I'm calling the lawyer. I heard her shriek into the phone. Roger? She's awake. Get down here now. I don't care what the bylaws say. He put effigies on his lawn. I'm looking at myself. No, the other one is nodding. I'm pointing. Just get here and call the police. She snapped her phone shut. The police are on their way, Mark, she yelled, puffing her chest out. We'll see how harmonious you are in jail. I leaned against my porch column. Jail? For a Christmas display? That's a bit much, don't you think, Brenda? The cops are busy. You're calling 911 for statues? It's a severe disturbance, a public display of insult. You're going down, Mark. You and your creepy friends. She stormed back to her house, slamming her door so hard I thought the glass would break. I looked at Dave. He looked at me. So, he said, the cops, huh? Looks like, I said. You want another coffee? I'm not going anywhere, I said, grinning. The morning was just getting started. The sound of a siren in Harmony Creek is rare. Usually it's just an ambulance for someone who's had a non-harmonious heart attack after reading their HOA fine. But this was a patrol car. Not lights and siren, we've got a murder fast, but that slow, we've got a call so stupid I am rethinking my career roll-up. 2 patrol cars, actually. Brenda must have really laid it on thick. Officer, send everyone. There's a statue, and it's pointing. I stayed on my porch. I was calm. I was ready. I had, in fact, gone back inside and retrieved my ace in the hole. I had the 300-page HOA binder, and I was holding it. The first car parked. Out stepped a man who looked like he'd seen it all twice. His name tag said Ramirez. He had a magnificent mustache and eyes that were already tired, even though it was barely 7:30 a.m. The second car parked. Out stepped a rookie. Kid looked about 12. His name tag said Nolan, and he had that eager-to-write-a-ticket look that hadn't been beaten out of him yet. Sir, morning, Officer Ramirez said, stopping on the public sidewalk. His eyes scanned the lawn. He looked at Mannequin Brenda. He looked at Mannequin Stan. He looked at Mannequin Marge, who was still nodding. He took a long, deep, cleansing breath. I'm Officer Ramirez. This is Officer Nolan. We got a call. A disturbance. Disturbance? I said, all innocence. Here? Officer, it's been a lovely, quiet, harmonious morning. Mark! Brenda's voice shrieked. She came power-walking out of her house, this time fully dressed in a beige pantsuit. She looked like she was heading to a very boring board meeting. Officer, thank God, she panted, running right up to Ramirez. Look, just look, he's harassing me. He's harassing the entire board. I am a public servant, officer. This is targeted harassment. It's like treason. Ramirez looked at Brenda. He looked back at my lawn. He looked at Mannequin Brenda, then at real Brenda. His mustache twitched. He was a professional. He was trying so hard. Ma'am, he said, his voice a perfect, deadpan monotone. Are you alleging that this man has committed treason with Christmas decorations? He's mocking me. He's mocking the entire board. Arrest him. Ma'am, on what charge, exactly? Ramirez asked, pulling out a small notebook. What crime is being committed here? Aggravated tinsel? It's harassment. It's impersonating an HOA president. The rookie, Nolan, had been silent. He was walking a slow circle around the display, his hand on his chin, like an art critic. He stopped at Mannequin Stan. "Sir," Nolan said, turning to me, his voice high and tight. He was fighting. He was fighting so hard. Is this one supposed to be calculating? Property taxes?" "He's the treasurer," I explained, helpfully. "I just wanted to capture his diligence, his commitment to the numbers." Nolan made a sound like a stepped-on goose. I have to go. Check the perimeter." He turned and walked very briskly back to his patrol car, his shoulders shaking violently. He was gone. He'd tagged out. It was just me, Brenda, and Ramirez. "Officer," I said, stepping forward, holding up my binder. "I can explain everything. I'm Mark. This is my property, and this is my holiday display, per Article 15. Ramirez's eyes flicked to the binder. "Article 15? Of the Harmony Creek HOA bylaws," I said. "See, my previous display, 12 traditional German nutcrackers, very festive, was cited by this woman." I gestured to Brenda. "For being creepy and non-harmonious." I was fined. A copy of the violation is right here on Mannequin Brenda. Ramirez's eyes went to the laminated letter. He squinted. He almost smiled. I saw it. "So," I continued, "I took them down. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I want to be harmonious. So I read the bylaws, which I have right here. Article 12, Statuary. It says, and I quote, 'Human likenesses are permissible as long as they are professionally constructed,' which they are. I have the invoice from Skeeter's Silicone Horrors, and Article 15 says they must be in the holiday spirit, which, I pointed, tinsel, Santa hats, fully compliant." I had never seen a man work so hard not to laugh. Ramirez's mustache was twitching so hard it was practically doing a samba. He turned to Brenda. "Ma'am, is this your property?" "No, it's his." "Is he on your property?" "No." "Are the statues obscene? Are they, anatomically detailed?" "No, they're wearing Santa hats. That's what makes it so insulting." "Ma'am," Ramirez said finally, his voice full of infinite patience, "insulting is a civil matter, not a criminal one. There is, literally, nothing I can do." You're useless," Brenda shrieked. You're on his side." "Ma'am, I'm on the side of not a crime. This is an HOA dispute. This is an HOA dispute I have ever seen. You need to talk to your HOA lawyer. You cannot call 911 because your neighbor's mannequins are creepy. My nutcrackers were creepy. These are a tribute," I chimed in, cheerfully. Ramirez nodded, as if this was all perfectly normal. "A tribute. Ma'am, please go back to your home. Do not touch the statues." "But Marge is nodding." "Ma'am, go home." He turned to me. He looked at me. He looked at the binder. He looked at Mannequin Brenda. "Sir," he said, "you have a very creative holiday. Please try to, not cause a neighborhood incident again." "I'm the picture of harmony, officer," I said. He nodded, tipped his hat, and got back in his car. Nolan, I could see, was slumped over his steering wheel. Just broken. The cops drove away. Brenda was left on the sidewalk, sputtering, defeated, and surrounded by neighbors who were all very, very clearly filming her on their phones. "This isn't over, Mark!" she screamed, her voice cracking. This is not over. I'm calling an emergency meeting." She stormed off. Dave, who had been watching the whole thing from his driveway, just raised his coffee mug to me in a silent, perfect toast. Brenda was a woman of her word. Her word was emergency, and she loved to use it. By noon, there was a new piece of paper taped to my door. It wasn't beige, it was red, a fiery, "I'm not messing around this time" red. Emergency HOA meeting. Mandatory attendance. Tonight. 7 p.m. Community Center. Agenda: the installation at 1428 Harmony Drive. She'd taped it so hard she'd used half a roll of duct tape, and I was pretty sure it had torn the paint off my door. Mandatory attendance, I scoffed. She's calling for a public shaming. My shaming. Internal monologue. This is it. She couldn't win with the cops, so now she's going for the court of public opinion. She thinks she can bully the whole neighborhood into backing her. I spent the rest of the day preparing. I reread Articles 12 and 15. I printed out copies. I got the invoice from Skeeter, with the business name blacked out. I was ready. That night, the community center was a zoo. It was a cold Tuesday night in December, and the place was packed. Standing room only. I'd never seen more than 10 people at one of these things. And that was for the Free Bagels meeting. They were all here. Neighbors I'd never met. People from 2 streets over. The local news blogger, a kid named Tim, was in the back, filming with his phone. The Mannequin 4, as they were now being called on the neighborhood Facebook group, were the talk of the town. My lawn had become a minor tourist attraction. I walked in and took a seat in the back row. All eyes were on me. I gave a polite, neighborly wave. At the front of the room, at a folding table, sat the board. The real board. Brenda was at the podium, shuffling her papers with a furious, trembling energy. Stan, the real Stan, was to her left, squinting at the crowd as if he was trying to calculate the per-head cost of the fluorescent lighting. Gary, the real Gary, was to her right, polishing his actual clipboard with a sweaty-palmed intensity. And Marge, wonderful, real Marge, was just sitting there, nodding. I swear, Skeeter's version was less robotic. Brenda banged a tiny gavel. "This emergency meeting of the Harmony Creek HOA is now in session." Her voice was a strained squeak. "We have one item on the agenda tonight. The travesty, the insult, the installation that Mr. Mark Jameson," she pointed a trembling finger at me in the back row, "has seen fit to inflict upon our peaceful, harmonious community." The room was silent. "This," she continued, her voice rising, "this circus, this mockery. Mr. Jameson was cited for a clear violation of Article 9. His dolls were creepy. They were non-compliant, and in an act of childish, petty spite, he has erected effigies of me, of your board." She was on a roll now. "He thinks he's so smart. He thinks he's found a loophole. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Jameson. There is another rule, an unwritten rule, a rule of decency, of respect, and you, sir, have violated it. You have brought shame to this community. You have made us a laughingstock. That blogger kid, Tim, is calling us Mannequin Gate." "It's got a good ring to it," Tim called from the back. "Silence!" Brenda shrieked. "This is not a joke. This is our property values. What if someone wants to sell, and they drive by and see that on a lawn? They'll think we're a community of maniacs." The room was getting restless. I saw Dave, 3 rows up, check his watch. Brenda took a deep breath. Therefore, I am overriding the loophole. The board is exercising its emergency power to declare the installation a public nuisance and a violation of the spirit of the bylaws. This was my moment. I stood up. Brenda, I said, my voice calm and clear. It cut right through the tension. Can I ask a question? Her head snapped toward me. This is not a Q&A, Mr. Jameson. You are in contempt. I'm not in contempt, Brenda. I'm a homeowner. I'm also a member of this HOA. And I just want to know, for the record, which specific written bylaw did I violate? The room went dead quiet. I just told you. The spirit. Ah, the spirit, I said, nodding, and taking a few steps into the center aisle. I was holding my copy of the binder. Because I read the actual bylaws, the 300-page book of written rules you use to fine us. I read them all night, and I'm confused. I held up my printouts. See, Article 9 CE says whimsical statues are banned. I complied. The Nutcrackers are gone. But Article 12 explicitly says human likenesses are permissible if they are professionally constructed, which mine are. I have the invoice. Article 15 says displays must be in the holiday spirit. They are wearing Santa hats. That is peak holiday spirit. So, Brenda, I said, walking a little closer, I'm just a simple guy. I just want to follow the rules. Your rules. You told me my Nutcrackers were creepy. I took them down. I made a new display that is 100% compliant with the written rules, and now you're telling me you're ignoring the written rules and enforcing a new, unwritten rule, a spirit rule? Is that how this works? The air was electric. So, I finished, what's the new rule? No displays that hurt Brenda's feelings. Where do I find that? Is that Section 14B? Because if it is, I'll comply, but I need to see it in writing. Silence. Brenda's face was a color I'd never seen before. It was violation red mixed with apoplectic purple. Then a voice from the crowd. Dave. He was standing up. He's got a point, Brenda, Dave said, his voice loud. I've read the binder. He's right. Article 12. Sit down, Dave, Gary the Weasel squeaked. No, I won't sit down. You fined me $200 for sonically aggressive wind chimes. You fined Mrs. Gable for her non-harmonious petunias. You've been fining all of us for years based on this binder, and now for the first time someone actually followed the binder to the letter, and you want to change the rules because you don't like it? Another voice. Mrs. Gable. And frankly, the Baker Nutcracker was judging me. But these new statues, I find them motivational. Look at Brenda's can-do pose. It's inspiring. The room erupted. Not in anger. In snickers. People were laughing. The tension had broken, and it was not in Brenda's favor. Brenda, in a last-ditch, desperate panic, grabbed her gavel. Bang, bang, bang. Fine, she screamed, her voice cracking. Fine, we'll put it to a vote, an emergency motion, to censure Mark Jameson and demand the immediate destruction of the tribute. She was breathing hard. All in favor of removal. 4 hands went up. Brenda, Stan, Gary, Marge. Brenda looked at the 4 hands, then at the crowd. A smug, see the board is united look on her face. All opposed? It was beautiful. It was like a scene from a movie. It started slow. One hand, Dave, then Mrs. Gable, then 2 more, then 5, then the entire room. A sea of hands. People I'd never even spoken to. People who were probably also fined for their petunias. They were all on my side. Dave was standing on his chair, both hands in the air, yelling, "Nay!" Tim, the blogger, was filming the whole thing, his face a mask of pure journalistic glee. The motion had failed. It had been slaughtered. Brenda just stood there. Her hand was raised. Her mouth was open. She looked at the sea of no votes. She looked at Stan, who was sinking in his chair. She looked at me. I just smiled, and I gave her a polite, little, harmonious wave. She'd been beaten, not by me, by her own stupid 300-page binder. The meeting ended without a motion to adjourn. Brenda just sort of crumbled. She gathered her papers, shot me a look that could curdle milk, and stormed out the side door. The board followed her like a sad, beige-colored reverse parade. The mannequins stayed up. And they didn't just stay up. They became a landmark. For the entire glorious month of December, the HOA board was forced to drive past themselves every single day. And every day, the display got more festive. People started adding to it. I came out one morning, and someone had put a little naughty and nice list in Stan's ledger. Someone else had draped a Miss Harmony Creek sash over mannequin Brenda. By Christmas Eve, the display had been yarn-bombed, and Gary's clipboard was covered in "I'm with stupid" stickers. It wasn't just a local thing, either. Tim the blogger's post, HOA gate, man fights creepy, fine with creepier mannequins, got picked up. People came from 2 towns over. I saw a family, a whole family, taking their Christmas card photo on my lawn. The dad was wearing a visor and pointing, just like mannequin Brenda. The mom was holding a calculator and squinting. It was art. Brenda never spoke to me again. Not a word. She didn't even make eye contact. If I saw her getting her mail, she would drop it and run inside. It was the real Christmas miracle. On Christmas morning, I did one last thing. I went into the garage, and I brought my 12 creepy Nutcrackers back out. I arranged them on the lawn in front of the mannequins. General Grumbles, Sergeant Sweettooth, and the whole gang. They looked like a tiny wooden army pledging allegiance to their new, life-size fiberglass overlords. It was harmonious. The day after New Year's, Skeeter's unmarked truck rolled up. "So," he said, admiring his handiwork, which was now covered in tinsel, 3 scarves, and a string of popcorn. You want to sell 'em? I got a buddy who runs a roadside Museum of the Weird in Florida. He'd call this outsider art. We could split it." I thought about it. I looked at mannequin Brenda, her accusatory point now holding a half-eaten candy cane. "Nah, Skeeter," I said, sipping my hot cocoa. "They're family. But do me a favor. Put 'em in storage for me. A safe storage. I've got a feeling I might need Brenda again next year. Maybe for the 4th of July. Skeeter grinned. "The Lord's work, kid. The Lord's work." I watched as they loaded her into the truck. The next day, a "for sale" sign went up on Brenda's lawn. I heard she resigned from the board, citing health reasons, and was moving to a condo. One with no lawn. I sat on my porch, my Nutcrackers safely back in their boxes, my lawn finally truly just mine. The Nutcrackers were creepy. No, The real creepy was the power trip. And this year I'd finally cracked that nut.